Welcome to the Get Wisdom podcast. And for you folks looking for a new way to do life, figure out how to get unstuck in any area of life, or need a new perspective on your current circumstance, we can assist you with all of these things. Check us out at www.getwisdom.cc.
I'm Miranda.
And I'm Jay. And we'll be taking you through the white paper today by Brent Seaman. Our goal is to provide you with actionable insights.
Yeah, we've got a really insightful deep dive for you today. It's all centered on this white paper by Brent Seaman, From Nice to Noble, The Evolution of the Modern Man. And it really is a necessary confrontation, I think. It charts this difficult kind of complex shift, moving from being that nice man who just wants approval to becoming what the paper calls a good man, someone with genuine strength.
Yeah, this paper, it really cuts right to the heart of it, the core idea being that, well, niceness isn't actually kindness, it's more like a performance.
Exactly, conditional.
Conditional, yeah. While true kindness comes from, like, sovereignty.
So where does Seaman say this whole nice man archetype comes from? What creates that compliance?
Well, the paper's pretty clear that the nice man is, fundamentally born out of fear.
Fear, okay.
Yeah, fear of rejection, maybe fear of disapproval, or just fear of emotional confrontation. It's not just being polite, it's deeper. It's like a survival strategy. Often conditioned really early on, maybe in families where love or acceptance felt, well, transactional. The kid learns, maybe without even realizing it, that just going along is the safest path.
And what's really interesting here, and the paper gets specific, is this trauma it identifies. Like when parents divorce late in a child's development, that son often kind of steps into the middle, right? Tries to regulate things for both parents.
Precisely. Yeah, he takes on this huge, totally inappropriate emotional load. He learns to manage the tension, sacrificing his own feelings, his own expression, just to keep the family unit looking stable. And that dynamic just locks him into this awful paradox. The paper sums up the message he gets as, provide but do not feel, achieve but do not assert.
That's it. That's the key phrase.
Yeah.
And that unspoken rule turns niceness into what Seaman calls a cage disguised as virtue.
Wow, a cage disguised as virtue.
Yeah, because he's always filtering reality through what he thinks other people need emotionally.
Yeah.
He never really establishes his own ground, his own needs.
Which leads straight into, well, relationship problems later on, right? Big time. If his whole system is built on avoiding conflict.
You can't set boundaries.
Right.
Exactly, because setting a boundary, which is just, a necessary statement of self, his nervous system reads that as like immediate danger, risking loss of love, loss of approval.
So he just avoids it all.
Avoids conflict entirely. And often stays loyal in really toxic situations. Bad bosses, bad partners. He mistakes just enduring something awful for integrity. He gets stuck because that survival tool is actually sabotaging his adult life.
Okay, so niceness is this, like, self-sabotaging survival mechanism. How does someone break free? The paper brings up the idea of the lost initiation, the missing transition into manhood.
Right. The paper suggests that, traditional cultures had these really clear, sometimes painful, very public rites of passage. Initiations. Physical trials, symbolic deaths, designed to basically cut the cord, strip the boy of his dependency, and move him into responsible, accountable manhood. But the modern West, Seaman argues, has totally sterilized that process.
The quote is chilling. We no longer cut the boy, we medicate him.
Ooh, yeah. And that absence, that gap, it leaves the masculine psyche kind of stranded in adolescence.
Stuck
seeking comfort or validation from outside or just escape instead of working towards internal mastery. And the paper points out three really critical patterns, maladaptive patterns that come from this. I think every listener will probably recognize these somewhere.
Okay, let's unpack those. They sound important.
Okay, first is repetition. This is where he unconsciously recreates that family trauma in his adult life. Like finding a partner or a boss who forces him back into that dynamic of walking on eggshells. It just confirms his deepest fear that, love is always conditional. You always got to earn it.
Gotcha. Okay, second.
Second is avoidance. Pretty straightforward. He just flees intimacy, avoids commitment, dodges confrontation, anything to avoid opening up those old wounds. Keeps things surface level, safe, disposable even.
Right. Easy come, easy go.
And the third one, which might be the most insidious, is overcompensation.
Overcompensation, like trying too hard.
Exactly. Performing this exaggerated loyalty or being a super high achiever or just constant people-pleasing. All of it is this desperate, exhausting attempt to prove he's worthy. Like he's always trying to earn his place.
That makes a scary amount of sense. And the paper warns, until a man chooses to face that pain, that wound inside, Life's just going to force the initiation anyway, right?
Yeah. Through loss or betrayal or some massive failure, the choice isn't if you suffer, it's how. Willingly facing
Right.
it head on or unwillingly getting dragged through it.
Yeah.
And this choice, it ties directly into this collapse of internal authority, which Zeman explains through this really key distinction between the dad and the father.
Oh, yeah. This part was really powerful. Let's spend a minute here. What's the difference he draws?
Okay, so the paper defines the dad as the figure who's mostly looking for affection, for comfort. He often has trouble letting go, maybe clings to his kids as sources of validation or extensions of himself. His energy is fundamentally kind of soft and conditional.
Right. Needs to be liked.
Needs to be liked.
Yeah.
Whereas the father,
Yeah.
the father operates from this place of real internal sovereignty. He gets that his authority doesn't depend on his kids liking him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to risk being disliked, to teach truth, to provide that necessary structure, demand accountability. His energy is firm, it's protective, and it's unconditional in its loyalty to truth, not just to being popular.
The paper even includes that really personal story about the author's own father, a man who had discipline, but then under major stress like financial collapse or something, he lost his center. His good habits disappeared. His temper flared.
And that energetic collapse, that's the core mechanism for how the nice man destabilizes his own life. The paper talks about how this instability actually inverts the family's polarity.
Hold on, inverting the family's polarity. Can you break that down a bit? What does that look like practically for someone listening?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So the paper uses polarity to describe the basic structure of a healthy relationship dynamic. The masculine energy's main job is to provide structure and protection, what the paper calls the container.
A container.
Right. And this safe, reliable container allows the feminine energy, emotion, creativity, intuition to expand freely within it. But when the man suppresses his own necessary assertiveness, that container gets weak. It gets flimsy.
He goes soft, like you said about the bat.
He goes soft, yeah. Or maybe worse, he becomes unpredictable in his softness. So the feminine energy can't trust that the container will hold. It can't rely on it. So she's forced to either contract, pull back, or she has to compensate by becoming more masculine herself, taking over the structure, the control, trying to build her own container.
So the very niceness he thought would keep the peace, it actually creates resentment,
Yeah.
distrust, because what his partner needs isn't compliance. It's like firmness, reliability.
Exactly. And the way out, the paper insists, is rebuilding that internal safety, learning how to hold tension, how to speak your truth even when it's hard, reclaiming your own structure. It's not about dominating. It's about being dependable, solid.
And that journey, like we said, it has to go through pain. Which brings us to this huge idea in the paper, integrating the wild.
Yeah, this section is so critical. The wise man, or the man becoming wise, has to learn to see pain, heartbreak, business failure, betrayal, not as punishment.
But as initiation.
As initiation, yeah. It's the fire, the crucible, that burns away his illusions about who he is, what he controls, what really matters.
But moving through that pain means facing the parts of himself he's probably spent his whole life pushing down, right?
Right.
His shadow masculinity.
Absolutely, yes. The paper warns that this whole societal push to completely tame masculine energy, it just leads to massive repression.
Doesn't make it go away.
No. That repressed primal energy, the anger, the assertiveness, the drive, it doesn't vanish. It just becomes this unintegrated rage and resentment that eventually leaks out and burns the people closest to him, or it turns inward into depression or self-destruction.
So the answer isn't suppression, it's channeling it.
Channeling it with love and discipline.
Yeah.
That's why the paper brings in that Jordan Peterson quote, "You can't be peaceful if you're harmless."
That's a powerful line.
It's so vital for listeners to get this. Real peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's a conscious choice made by someone who is capable of assertiveness, even destruction, but chooses not to use it harmfully. The good man embodies this loving strength fierce enough to protect the container,
Right.
but also soft enough to nurture what's inside it.
And the ultimate kind of spiritual task here, the paper argues, is facing that internal shadow, specifically what it calls the luciferic shadow. That sounds intense.
It is intense, but it's a really useful psychological concept. The luciferic shadow is that part in all of us that wants power without love, control without conscience. It's the part that craves success and authority, but hasn't done the internal work to deserve it or wield it responsibly. The spiritual battle ultimately is fought with truth, because, as the paper notes, love can be violent.
Whoa. That's a provocative statement. Love can be violent.
It means that real love, pure love, has to be intense enough to destroy falsehood, to cut through illusion. It's
Okay.
the severity of truth that slices through all those layers of niceness and self-deception that the nice man uses to hide. It's not about physical harm, obviously, but about the force of truth.
Got it. Okay, so let's shift towards like actionable stuff. For the listener who's hearing this and thinking, okay, I'm ready to start. The paper suggests the first place to practice this sovereignty isn't romance, it's business, work, the spiritual dojo.
Yeah, it's often, well, maybe easier to practice integrity with a client or a contract than it is with your partner, where the emotional stakes feel so much higher initially
Right.
that people-pleasing at work, avoiding clear agreements, being wishy-washy on finances, not addressing poor performance, it comes from the exact same wound. That fear of confrontation, fear of setting terms.
There's that great quote in there for the listener. Clean paper makes good friends.
Yes. The nice man avoids contracts, avoids clarity, because he dreads the potential conflict of negotiating. But the good man, he insists on clear terms, solid contracts, mutual respect. Not because he fears conflict, but because he actually values the relationship and knows that clarity is the only foundation for real trust.
He respects himself and the other person enough to demand honesty up front.
Exactly. And by doing that consistently in his work, enforcing terms, demanding respect, holding people accountable, and himself, he starts to literally recondition his nervous system.
How so?
He learns, like on a deep body level, that boundaries actually lead to safety, not abandonment, that clarity builds strength.
And that reconditioning, that leads to real confidence, right? Not arrogance, not bluffing.
Yeah, strength that's totally different from arrogance.
Yeah.
He has nothing left to prove because he's building that internal knowing of who he is.
Okay, so finally, Zeman points to heartbreak as maybe the most transformative initiation. Why is losing feminine validation the ultimate test for this nice man archetype?
Because if a man has built his entire sense of self, his identity, around getting that validation from outside, from a partner, a boss, the world, then losing it feels catastrophic. It feels like annihilation, like losing his entire self. That's the moment of truth. It forces the choice.
The choice being collapse back into neediness, chase the next hit of validation, basically stay the nice man.
Right. Or
Yeah.
choose sovereignty over survival.
Yeah.
That fire of heartbreak, if he lets it, teaches him his worth, isn't tied to her presence or her approval. It's inherent. It's the moment he can finally learn that real love isn't dependency. It's overflow. It's an offering from a full cup, not a desperate plea from an empty one.
Wow. Okay. So what really stands out then is that the future kind of belongs to men who can hold both sides, right? The wild and the wise, the shadow and the light. And that means deliberately rebuilding those lost rites of passage, maybe through mentorship, brotherhood, spiritual practice.
Exactly. It requires intentional work. And if you, the listener, would like to dive deeper into this specific white paper and maybe explore resources around this, you can contact Brent Zeman directly. His number is 972-301-2878.
That's 972-301-2878.
Or you can email him at getwisdomprinciple@gmail.com.
That's getwisdomprinciple@gmail.com.
Also, be sure to check out our sponsors over at www.getwisdom.cc sponsors.
Thank you so much for listening today.
And we will see you tomorrow right here on the Get Wisdom podcast. And just a final thought to leave you with. This modern world, it's absolutely swimming in confusion, isn't it? The truly revolutionary act today might just be the clarity of the good man. The man who genuinely knows who he is, who commands his power without needing to constantly prove it, because he's chosen to integrate it. Maybe start practicing just a little bit of that clarity today.